If you're tired of the standard business and marketing fundamentals, frameworks, and funnels, you need a little mischief. Get ready to turn up the volume on the CEO Mischief Maker podcast, where you access conversations with seasoned business owners who have smashed through mindset barriers, innovated the standard boring business and marketing playbooks, and executed future-paced strategies with bleeding-edge tools and tactics to micro-fail their way into massive success and growth. We are Mindset Impact Strategic Catalysts helping innovative entrepreneurs focus. We are CEO Mischief Makers. Ready to make a little mischief? All right, CEO Mischief Makers, I get to have another incredible conversation with some people I've actually met in person. It's really weird how that is so strange nowadays, right? But yes, welcome to the conversation, Robert and Lee Fukui. Hey guys, how you doing?
Hi. And Kay, we're glad to be here. And a kind of funny story about meeting in person. So, when we met up in Nashville that first morning, Sheila Wilkinson, she's in our group, but she's an attorney. Anyways, she comes up to me at the morning break and she goes, I waved to your wife, but she didn't wave back. And I'm like, I don't think she knows you.
Right.
You only know her because of me, because I talk about her, but she doesn't know you.
So she's got a mask on. She comes in the room, she sits down, and someone's just waving away and waving. And I kind of look behind me because how many times oh my gosh, you see this cute hunk of a hunk guy and he's waving. And you're like, oh, is he waving at me?
Is it me?
And you wave and then you turn around and there's like a model behind you and you're like, oh, that was embarrassing.
Never mind. Yeah, it's so funny. And it is true. Even seeing people on, screen, they're going to look a little differently. And not only that, I remember faces. I don't always remember names. So I'm like walking up and hugging people and I'm like, I have no idea what to call you. I know you're there. I've seen you many times, but what is your name? So
you look different in 3 dimensions too.
Or with your mask on.
Yeah. And also, so many times people, like one guy was saying, he was introducing me to someone and he's like, she's much taller than I thought. Okay, I'll take it. That's my distinguishing feature. I'll take it. So anyway, all right, everybody listening knows that this is going to be a fun conversation already. So let's start with kind of what you guys do and just clue us in as to who you are and what you do.
Yeah, clue us in, honey.
So we work with married entrepreneurs and we help them create better work-life and balance. And so I come from an entrepreneur family, 3rd generation. My grandpa was a painting contractor for the big stores, grocery stores like Bonds and Pavilions and those kinds of things. And then we also had a small business. And so I grew up with that. I was very fortunate. Got my business degree just like Robert did. And some of the struggles we saw some of the struggles and some of the challenges that entrepreneurs have.
Yeah, so it's kind of a unique niche in business consulting because people think we're more relationship coaches, but we're really business consultants. And we just help structure the business so it's not overtaking the relationship. It's just that we just kind of have a unique goal of, as we help you structure the business, become more efficient and profitable, the end goal is really so you have more time back with family and your personal time, which is the top regrets for most entrepreneurs as they get older, was not having enough time with family.
Yeah, like in my situation, the business became the mistress. My dad worked 6 days a week and he wasn't home a lot. And when you're a child, let's be honest, you just want your dad to be home to play with you, softball, be at all your games, and just hang out.
Yeah, I get it. I totally get it. So just to be clear, you are not marriage and family counselors and therapists. No. You are specifically, your goal is to work with married entrepreneurs mainly for the purpose of structuring their business so that they can actually have a relationship, or at least the relationship they want, right?
Great.
Sounds like?
Exactly.
Yes.
Got it. All right. So we're clear. All right. So through that, to that end, it sounds like you guys probably deal with a lot of mindset shifts that have to happen around this process, right? Tell us, absolutely. I know a little bit about your story. I've heard you guys talk and see your book. But tell us start with yourself. What mindset shifts did you have to go through that basically brought you to this place and helping other people?
Yeah, so it was actually when I was transitioning from my corporate career, I spent 25 years in Fortune 500 companies in marketing and sales. And then about 6 years ago, kind of venturing out into doing consulting work. And in that transition, I had to work full time still to pay the bills, and then doing consulting work on the side, which is usually meant evenings because, the day is filled up with your, obviously, obligation to your employer. And so working till 2 a.m. became pretty normal. And so, which meant by the time Friday night into the weekend hit, even though I wasn't working on weekends, that was one boundary I did create, was to still have that personal time during the weekend, but still, I was so exhausted that physically, mentally, and emotionally, I was just spent. And so here I am, wake up Saturday morning, walk the dog, have breakfast with Kaylee, and then looking at that couch going, man, that looks good. And so I go there to lie down for a minute, and that minute becomes an hour or two. So in that transition, Kaylee was very gracious about this, knowing that, hey, it's a transition phase, right? So hopefully by the time I actually leave the corporate job, our schedule can go back to a little bit more normal. But then even in the midst of that, it just got so tiring that I was like, there's got to be a better way. And I think I bought into the same thing a lot of entrepreneurs face, and just not even entrepreneurs, just people in general, that you have to go all in on your career, your business, and you're going to have to sacrifice your personal life. So I bought into that. So I think psychologically, I was just doing it to think that's what I needed to do. 2 a.m. was like a badge of honor to work hard and to work a long time. And so, but I sat there and go, this is stupid. I'm like, why can't I do this better? Why can't I get to bed by, say, 11? I mean, there's no way to get around having to work off hours for my day job, right? So I knew I had to put some time into it, but can I get to bed earlier so that by the time Friday night and the weekend hits, I'm not tired, that I can be present for a Kaylee. So that's the mind shift. Is like, no, I don't need to buy into what everybody else is doing. I don't need to be busy. How do I figure out ways to be more productive, that I can actually get more done with less time? And so that's the mind shift. That was the basic mind shift that I think, and that's why we fell into this, because we saw our clients doing the same thing and they didn't have a second job. Mm-hmm. So I'm like, okay, it's not a second job issue. This is just how they're doing it, because society has just conditioned us to think we got to go all in and sacrifice our personal life. So the mind shift is, no, that's not the way it has to be. It can be done better.
Yeah, for some reason, we just bought into that lie, because there's no stats that prove that the harder you work, the more successful you're going to be, because as entrepreneurs, we think we just have to put more time in, which I thought for a season I could do it, but we didn't have anything of any time frame, like how long we thought it was going to be. And so I thought, I could do a little bit, but
that's a problem.
I can't help my husband, and, you know what I mean? And when he's like totally emotionally and physically gone, it's hard.
Right. Yeah, I get it. I get it. I get it. And I understand completely. Luckily, my husband had a more seasonal job. So it was basically, he was a tax accountant. So that was his harvest season, right? That was when his business pretty much made almost all their money, was in that
just
short.
Say bye for 3 months.
I'm telling you, there's a term. It's called tax season widow. Yeah, it really is. I mean, so basically, and the whole family had to adapt to that. When our kids were young, they were used to, because the rest of the time, my husband was very involved. He'd take the kids to school, he'd volunteer in classes, he'd do all these things. Yeah. And then all of a sudden, boom, he disappears. And the kids are like, what's happening? And their school suffered a little bit, and they would go through a transition when dad was no longer there. And the teachers even saw it. I don't know what's going on. They'd say around, February, the spring semester, I don't know what's going on, but it's like, he's just not here. And I'm like, oh, it's tax season. Sorry. But, and it's tough. It's really tough. And in that sense, it's obviously harvest season. It's just like, the plants, you can't wait, right? There's a deadline. You have no choice. You have a choice. Obviously, you always have a choice, but it's a sacrifice, and you have to sacrifice one or the other in order to do what you got to do. So it sounds like that mindset shift for yourself, you basically exactly translated that into helping your clients do the same thing.
Exactly. How to do life better, how to have greater work-life balance, and balance isn't measured by quantity of time, and that's where people get caught up. It's not about how much time you spent over here, over there, and try to balance it out. It's a qualitative measurement, right? It's quality of time. So even in the midst of, like, even for your example, even in the midst of tax season. You know it's coming every year, so at least it's predictable, right? So at least during that period, you're not going to see him, but at least it's predictable. So on the front end and back end and everything in between, that you can do life. But even in the midst of a busy tax season, you can maybe plan for that half hour, an hour, just to connect on a maybe daily, if not weekly basis, right? There's always a little bit of time that you can spend to just connect. And there's some stats around the fact that it's just like the average parent spends only about 43 seconds of quality, face-to-face, dedicated, uninterrupted, non-distracted time with their kids.
A
Not
day,
on the phone.
I hope that's a day.
A day. And that means not on the phone, not having things going through your head, right? A
Not
really
multitasking.
undistracted time. So that is a very, very specific. But only on the flip side, only 5 minutes of dedicated, uninterrupted, uninterrupted time.
Uninterrupted,
is also will feed the kid for the day, right? So it's not amount of time; it's just the quality of it. So the measurement, the amount of time is not really the issue.
Even though we're saying, please spend more time than with you.
We're not saying just 5 minutes is that's it.
Right. 5 minutes, doesn't matter what you're doing, just be there for 5 minutes. Yeah. We've seen that, right? We've seen that. But it's true. And luckily I raised my kids, mine are in their 20s now. So luckily I raised my kids before the onslaught of phones and social media and all those things. And even though when they were going into elementary school and even middle school, most of the kids around them had cell phones, and they were even having smartphones. My youngest easily had smartphones. His classmates had smartphones when they were in elementary school. And we had a very hard and fast rule that no, you're not going to get a cell phone until you need it. And they didn't need it until they were going to be away from us, because I was home. I was a home-based entrepreneur, so I could go pick them up from school, take them to events, do all those kinds of things. They didn't have to take a bus. They didn't have to go to after-school care or any of those things. I took them and brought them back home. So there's no reason for them to have a phone, right? What are they going to do with it? We've got a phone for the house. If you want to call your friends, there it is, right?
Snapchat.
And so, let me tell you, I'm so glad, because it's crazy. And so, they didn't have a phone, I think, until 8th grade, right before they went into high school. Because of course, then all bets are off. I mean, it's really, once they get to high school, forget it. Once they start driving, forget it. You will be chasing them. They no longer are chasing you. So, but that I agree with that 100%. And I remember taking them to the parks, and actually, instead of sitting watching them play, I would slide down the slides and, play on the swings. I even had, this was how old I was, I had a Palm Pilot in my back pocket. And I slid down one of the slides with my son with the Palm Pilot in my back pocket, and it fried my Palm Pilot. The static electricity fried it. It was dead. I'm like, oh, well, I'm not doing that again.
Well, it was only about 6 years ago when I got rid of my Palm Pilot.
Oh my goodness.
And I was actually resisting. I was resisting getting a smartphone for the very thing you're talking about, is the distractions, because I knew it was just going to distract me. So I held it as long as I could until the Palm Pilot just gave up.
Well, I got one better from that too. My husband got his very first cell phone this last January. Very first ever smartphone. He went straight to an iPhone, basically the same one I have. So he's never had a cell phone at all until January 2022. Yep.
Well, you know where to find him.
I knew exactly. That's the point. He was either at work or at home, and that's it. Talk about mindset shifts, though. I mean, that's a major one, to actually go and start into this whole world that we all navigate naturally because we've been in it for so long. But that's pretty cool. So, all right. Any last word, any last piece of advice you'd like to give for entrepreneurs, whether they're married, not married, in a relationship, not in a relationship, whatever the case may be, but a last word that you can give for entrepreneurs to help develop that mindset between being busy and actually using your time wisely. And I agree with you. Balance isn't the key. It's really choices, and the choices that we make with that time that brings whatever balance you're looking for. So any last words on how entrepreneurs can shift their mindset to have more productive time?
Well, I think get help. I mean, I had that epiphany and I kind of did it on my own, but for a lot of people, it's really hard to break that pattern. I mean, because at the time I was, oh gosh, 48, 48 years old. So it's 48 years of history of just doing, right? And thinking and doing a certain way. And for some people, and I was fortunate I was able to do it, kind of snap out of it. But for a lot of people, you think you need help. But even after the fact, I still learn from other people, or there's a lot more books out there for work-life balance and or anything around that area about being more efficient and all that. I think getting help, because, we're both in masterminds, and there's nothing like, a lot of times the coach or the consultant or the therapist is oftentimes stating the obvious, but we just can't break it out. And then they can help you develop a plan of action to how you start to break that pattern. Anything, man?
No, I totally agree. And be coachable. Because how many times does somebody say they want help, but then they're not coachable? And they're like, it's really challenging then. So just be open to be uncomfortable. I know it's challenging even for myself to let go of the control, but to, just be open to it, trying something new and different, and to embrace it.
Yeah, which coachable means that you're self-aware. I mean, I think the awareness piece is key. Being aware you have an issue, and especially if you're married, you may think you got it together. Ask your spouse; they'll probably have a different answer, and they probably said it already, and you're just tired of hearing it. So, but there's a reason, right? And so, listen to what those closest to you are saying.
Okay, hold on. If your mindset was shifted, you were inspired to innovate, and you were spurred into action, don't just move on with your day. Focus, my friend, and take a few minutes to visit CEOmischiefmaker.com to learn more about the value that was shared with you today. Please act now and create some CEO mischief of your own.